Okay, the meeting has come to order, please. We determined that the clock is 2 minutes slow, and we want to start the meeting, and we have a good meeting ahead of us, and I want to welcome the Senior Executive Vice President of Exelon, Dennis O'Brien, and the President and CEO of Pepco Holdings, David Velasquez, and obviously our well-known regional president of Delaware Power, Gary Stockbridge. So welcome, gentlemen, and all the people with you. We appreciate your coming here to inform us about the company and what's going on. But first, before we get started, I would like to say, since we have Exelon here, we've got Regina here, we've got Andrea Moucher here, Connie McDowell here, Matt Hardigan, and we've got Tony, I see back there. And is Tom Noyes here? Look at that. Tom's here. That's great. Is Ms. Scott here somewhere? Deborah Scott. Great. Well, I mentioned, Tony, you're not in this group. I apologize. I mentioned your name because I guess I'm thinking about the fact that this is probably her last meeting with us. So, Tony, thank you so much for all the work you've done for us. And it sounds like you have a great opportunity to move to Georgia, and we wish you well, and we send our thanks and safe trip south and a great future ahead for you. But as far as the other people I mentioned, Andrea Moucher, if Andrea could come up, please, and Connie. Andrea and Connie were the leaders of the merger team. It's appropriate since that's not here. They were nominated to be the top state employees and contributors to the state, and they came in a close second, I believe. And so inside here is a certificate signed by the governor thanking them for their efforts. And it says a possible pay increase in the future. Unfortunately, we have a $4 million deficit. We have a nice, nice certificate. So on behalf of the governor and the commission, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. I'll give this to Andrea, this one to Connie, and I asked that Tom and Matt come up as well, and Regina.
The gang's all
Scott, here. The gang's all here. Now, I'm not sure if we'll have another opportunity to put together a merger team. I don't think so. Not in my tenure. Thank you so much. Appreciate your efforts. Tom, it's always a pleasure, my friend. You Matt Hardigan's doing it. There we go. Regina, another accolade.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Drew.
Very much. We have the first thing on the agenda, I guess, is the reading of the meeting minutes of May 23rd. Are there any changes or corrections to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, could we please have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of the May 23rd meeting.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion. One abstention, Ms. Conaway, Commissioner Conaway. The regular agenda, we're doing something unusual today. We're going to start with number 3 and work down to number 1. And I think that Artesian water people would come forward, please, and they're probably they're smiling. They're smiling because... I skipped over the consent?
Yes.
I guess I am in a hurry. I'm in a hurry, aren't I? Let's do the consent agenda next while they're getting seated.
Move we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. As I was saying, Artesian Water, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Scott Steffen on behalf of Artesian and Cantwell Water Companies. Today, Artesian and Cantwell are seeking Commission approval of an asset purchase agreement where Artesian intends to obtain certain water utility assets of Cantwell along with the CPCN rights to serve Cantwell's customers. Upon receiving Commission approval, both companies would like to schedule a closing date on or around before June 30th. The timing of closing is going to coincide with Cantwell's quarterly billing schedule. which is done at the end of each calendar quarter. Once closing occurs, Artesian will try and connect their two systems as quickly as possible. The process to connect the system should only take about a day, so hopefully it'll be a quick turnaround. As you're aware, this transaction will impact about 39 customers for Cantwell, all of which are currently unmetered. As a result, we've sent out a notification letter making everybody aware of what's coming down the road. Specifically, the impacts of the customers, since there are no meters right now for Cantwell, upon closing, Artesian's going to reach out to the customers to try and schedule time to install a meter. All costs associated with the meter installation will be paid by Artesian. For the period of closing on the agreement before meter installation occurs, Cantwell customers will be charged at their current rates, which are $110 per quarter. Upon our meter installation, they will then be subject to Artesian's rates, which is not we just don't have just the fixed rate, we also have the volumetric rate as well. So once the meter is installed, they will be subject to Artesian's tariff. We have received some limited feedback from customers. Everything seems to be largely positive at this point. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Stefan. Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Chair Winslow, Commissioners. We reviewed the application for docket 170297, and Mr. Stefan's presentation is accurate. We submitted an order for their review, and we had some very good editorial comments, revisions from the company as well as Ms. Iori, and we have a proposed order number 9065, which we would request Commission's approval.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. The public advocate reviewed the application. We did not have any problem with it. We think it's a good thing for this small water company to be served by a company that's been in business for a while, has economies of scale, hopefully will be beneficial for the current Cantwell customers. We did have the opportunity to review the proposed form of order, and we submit that order for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties?
Just, could I comment, Mr. Chairman? This is the first water company that I ever worked on in 1982, and I'm glad that they've expanded from the 32 customers in 1982 to the robust 39 customers in 2017. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But it's a good step forward for those customers. Small as the number may be, it's a positive step, so we appreciate Artesian's work with Cantwell in this particular matter. If there are no questions, Mr. Commissioner, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. I'm looking at the order on page 4, and in paragraph 5, it says the sale and transfer of assets to Artesian will exclude Cantwell's supply well and supply mains.
Yes.
So these are no longer paid for, regulated by the PSCN or CPCN?
The supply well mains will be Cantwell's. They're going to abandon that. We are going to connect them to Artesian system. We have a supply main right there. If you actually know where the Cantwell development is, it half falls in the town of Odessa and half outside the town of Odessa. We have a main right there. We're going to connect their transmission and distribution system to our supply main.
Okay, so they're abandoning.
They are going to abandon.
Very good. That answers my question, Mr. Chair. No further questions. Thank you.
May we have a motion, please?
Move we adopt order number 9065.
I second.
Any discussion on the motion to approve order number 9065? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 2, in the matter of the application of Delaware Power and Light Company for a change in natural gas base rates and miscellaneous tariff. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Delmarva filed its gas base rate case on May 17th, 2016. Just before the hearings got started in that matter, the parties entered into a settlement agreement which was presented to the hearing examiner on April 7th. The hearing examiner took testimony on the parties' settlement positions. Subsequently, he issued his hearing examiner's report on May 31st, which was filed in Delaware file. All of the parties had the opportunity to review and offer comments as to the contents of that report. And he has since recommended approval of the proposed form of settlement agreement, which is set forth in order number 9049. So Delmarva Power would urge that the commission adopt order 9049 as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Geddes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Staff supports the order and the analysis that Ms. Scott provided you. All parties have agreed to it, and there are no exceptions to it.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. Commissioners, DPA has nothing to add to what's already been said. We do support the settlement agreement and ask that the commission approve it.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have just one quick question. On page 5, the recommendations of the hearing examiner, who should I ask that question of? It does reference at the top that for a typical residential customer using 120 CCF in winter, the monthly bill impact is $13.55. That's at the 22 million, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would extrapolate that down.
The rates will go into effect July 1st, and as you know, the settlement was a substantial decrease from what we had originally filed. The impact on a regular residential customer will be a decrease of $6.79.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think this is the same matter where we had some discussions in a prior meeting with regard to issues related to testimonies accepted or rejected by the hearing examiner. Just the process-oriented question. There was no language in this document or this order associated to the resolution in that hearing.
I would think not. I think the parties were pretty clear that they had a difference of opinion, and I don't think it was settled between that meeting and this meeting.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Geddes?
We are working on that, but that issue was not involved in this
Right.
topic.
All right, so it's satisfying to know that it's being worked on. That since I didn't see it here, I was just curious to raise it as a process question. Okay.
There's an order that's being circulated. I assume it'll be on the agenda for the next one.
No further questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve order number 9049 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Scott, Ms. Iori, and Mr. Geddes. Okay, we've got to number 1 now. Gentlemen want to come forward? Whoever's going to be... Once again, welcome to you all, and thank you for coming up to various locations to visit with us. Before we get started, I would just like to make the comment that as far as the last storm is concerned, is that we thought that, at least I thought anyway, that it was really good to see the presence of the merger there. I think there was a strengthening, so to speak, in terms of our response, and I believe that things went very, very well. And so I know we had a lot of out-of-state assets that came in, and so I would express my appreciation. I'm sure other commissioners feel the same about that work that was done. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. We'll continue to try to improve. And also want to thank Exelon for its support of Delaware in terms of trying to get a fair allocation of costs at the artificial island. That doesn't mean we don't pay anything. We want to pay our fair share. But we do appreciate the fact that you've taken this on with an attitude that's one of fairness and equity and not a place of location or any other aspect. So I guess who's going to be in charge here?
Chair Winslow, so thank you very much. As you know, this is always, it'll rotate today, but this is an extremely exciting event for us every year. And so this is a kind of a twofold thing here. This is not only our state of the company that we come down annually for, but it is also a completion of a merger agreement that we had to specifically to have Mr. O'Brien here today as part of it. And I think it'll fill out the conversation to understand kind of how the parent company is, as you say, through storms and other activity helping us. So I'm excited about that. I did, before we get into the presentation, we always bring a number of guests with us, and so I'm not going to introduce everybody because we have our usual folks here that you deal with all the time and know them very well, but just a few of our guests today that I wanted to mention if they could stand up. So Paul Bonney, who's our Senior VP of Legal and Regulatory Strategy, is with us today. Kevin McGowan, who's our VP of Regulatory Strategy and Policy, is with us today. Clarissa Bay Taylor is here for VP of PHI Communications. And new to the team, Clark Stalker is our new Associate General Counsel, and he's joining us for the first time today as well. So, and then again, there's others in the group, all of whom have helped kind of bring this together today. And so we appreciate bringing the crowd down and that you allow us to do that when we have these.
That's a good legal name.
Yes.
So now introductions of our panel, our august panel with us today. As I said, it's an exciting day because we've really broadened the discussion. And so Dennis O'Brien is our Senior Executive Vice President of Exelon and CEO of Exelon Utilities, and he will be leading off our discussion today. And then Dave Velasquez, who you've seen here with me before a number of times, is our President and CEO of Pepco Holdings. And so we'll go from an Exelon to a PHI, and then I'll tell you about the home team and how we're doing here on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm the man who accompanied Gary Stockbridge to address you today. So, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here today to present the state of the union for Delmarva Power. I'm joined with Dave Velasquez, who will present on PHI and some of the other activities. And it's great to be back here with Gary. Gary and I worked for 15 years together at PECO, and so it's nice to be reunited with Gary in the Exelon family of companies. I am the CEO of Exelon Utilities. I've worked for Exelon and PECO, the predecessor company, for 35 years this month. Ironically, my father worked for PECO for 38 years before me. So when I talk about utilities, I refer to it as the family business. And it's been part of my life and my family for years. I am extremely pleased and excited that we are able to have Delmarva Power into the Exelon family of companies. And it's a great thing to be working with Gary and all of the Delmarva folks again. What we're doing today is I'll talk a little bit about Exelon. Dave will talk about what's going on at PHI, and then Gary will bring it all home, and we'll try to make sure there's plenty of time for Gary to talk about the state of affairs at Delmarva. Our family of companies, as you know, we have 6 utilities: Atlantic City Electric, Baltimore Gas and Electric, Commonwealth Edison, PECO Energy, Pepco, and Delmarva Power. We serve 10 million households and businesses, and that's really 22 million customers, or 22 million Americans that we serve electricity and gas to. Our companies in the Mid-Atlantic are contiguous from Trenton to Virginia when you put all the companies together, and we have over 17,000 employees serving our customers gas and electric. When we look at our utilities, of which I've worked in my whole career, there's 2 values that I've tried to build into the business, and they are the values of safety and diversity and inclusion. And we want that principle and those values built into everything that we do. After that, we are focused on providing our customers with high levels of service and high levels of satisfaction. And we strive to be the best performing family of utilities in the nation. We also realize that we are only as successful as the communities that we serve are in the regions that we serve. I mentioned my father earlier. He did economic development for our company for 25 years. So we realize if these areas don't grow and prosper, and if we're not very engaged in that process of making the regions grow and prosper, we will not be successful. With that in mind, we are very engaged in economic development, corporate philanthropy, volunteerism, funding educational initiatives, and more. And it's all with the eye on helping to have Delaware grow and prosper and being players at the table and helping to figure that out. And I know Gary is at the table everywhere and working very hard. I hear from him and I hear from all the others around Delaware about his great work. I think we have a pretty good model and a know-how for running utilities. Our approach is really somewhat of a collegial approach of we have peer groups, we focus on best practice replication, we have lots of performance measurement and goal setting against the best in the industry, and we try to get a lot of collaboration and a little bit of mild competition to get performance to the right place. And it's always an interesting meeting when you show the 6 companies on the same chart and you say, well, why is your line there? And it's a very powerful tool, but it is a model of high collaboration and mild competition, and we've been very successful with that, creating and sustaining high performance in our Exelon companies. We had, our job is to keep the lights on, but if they go off, it's to get the lights back on as quick as possible. The winter storm here was just another chance for us to have that collaboration. We had over 700 employees and contractors from other Exelon companies on site very, very quickly. We started moving our Commonwealth Edison crews from Chicago in advance of the storm, figuring somewhere in the mid-Atlantic we'd need them, and we would point them to the right place when the storm hit. And so when the storm hit, we were able to move 700 of our employees and contractors into Delaware, and I think the restoration proceeded very well. Much like the chairman said, I think we can do it even better, and every time we get to do it, I think we will get quicker at doing it and faster. We've got to the point now where all of our employees are trained on permitting, so they can go from wherever they are from the barn or service center or whatever each company calls it to the trouble job, hold the permit, do the work, and move to the next job without any pre-staging, without anything else. And I think as we continue to hone that, we're going to get better and better at it. And storms are a thing that we have to deal with, and I think you'll see our performance get even better as time goes by. Our model is also premised on being local. Our suppliers, we want local suppliers, we want diverse suppliers, and we want to be the local company. So it's a model of we own these local companies, they are local, and they have the scale and size of Exelon behind them to help with driving performance. And just before I turn it over to Dave and Gary for all of the comments, let me end by thanking you for approving our merger. I met some of you in the depositions, and the rest of you for ex parte reasons I did not meet along the way, but we appreciate the whole process that we went through and the approval that this commission did for the merger. And I just want to reaffirm Exelon's commitment to be here, to create and sustain high performance, to be dedicated to this commission, to be dedicated to the state of Delaware, and to be dedicated to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it is a pleasure to be here, to be representing Pepco Holdings and speaking about our company. For me, it is always a special pleasure to be back in Delaware. Almost to the exact day I started my career 36 years ago at Delmarva Power in Newark. So always nice to come back to Delaware. On this slide, I wanted to provide you with a little bit of an overview of Pepco Holdings, but the main thing was to build on the comments that Mr. O'Brien made. We continue to operate Pepco Holdings, I'll say, as a standalone utility as part of the Exelon family of utilities. So there's local control, Many of the same management team that was in place is still in place. I had served as the chief operating officer prior to the merger and had the privilege of taking over as the chief executive officer. Gary was here as regional president. Much of his team that you see in the audience was here before the merger, continues to be here. So a real set of continuity, pre-merger, post-merger, the same focus we've had, the same local emphasis that we had before as well. I'm not going to go through the facts that are on that page. As you can see, Delmarva Power, a very key piece of the PHI family. So the second largest utility of the three utilities. We have Pepco, Atlantic City, and Delmarva Power, and very, very important to us and to our success. And we have a very significant presence in Delaware. The next slide I wanted to talk a little bit about, although I said we're a standalone, or still operate as a standalone utility, we're able to leverage the advantages of being part of the larger Exelon. And I can tell you unequivocally, it has been a tremendous advantage to us, and I have seen it firsthand to become part of the Exelon family of companies. And I'm probably not going to have time to highlight everything, and Gary will probably touch on some things, and Mr. O'Brien has as well. But just wanted to touch on a couple areas and highlight them. First of all, as Dennis had said, one of our core values is around safety. You can see our safety record there for 2016. We continue to improve every year. Safety is one of those areas where we are never satisfied until every employee goes home safely every day throughout every year going forward. We continue to make progress using and leveraging off some of the programs that Exelon has in place, whether it's enhanced job briefings before the job starts, whether it's doing and implementing a human performance program. Also integral to us in safety is also public safety, making sure that we operate our system in a way that keeps the general public safe as well. And we've seen improvements there as well. There's some damage prevention programs around dig-ins and things like that we've begun to import from some of the Exelon companies to help improve our area of performance there as well. On the environmental side, we continue to be committed to environmental leadership. You can see some of the different awards and recognitions that we've gotten for our efforts. We've continued to ramp those efforts up as well. On the top right-hand corner, a graphic there representing the Exelon Innovation Expo, which is occurring this June 27th, and all of you are invited to attend if you're able to. It's being hosted in Washington, D.C. this year. It is quite a spectacular event. There's over, I think, 2,500 employees who will be there. There's over 400, I think, or 300 or 400 different innovative ideas that are being showcased. But again, I think it shows the power of being part of a larger company. And there will be folks from Delmarva Power and from Pepco Holdings presenting some of our ideas as well. But that allows us to leverage off those ideas and bring them in-house and allow us to make progress quicker. I'd also point out at the bottom around the opportunities for collaboration. Some of this is around best practices. Some of it relates to the way we manage work and some of the systems that we're implementing from Exelon to allow us to manage that work more tightly. Some of it around training. We've noticed, I talked about our safety record. We had some responsible vehicle accidents. A number of those were around very slow speed maneuvering of large trucks in tight confined areas, for instance, like the city of Wilmington. One of our sister utilities, Baltimore Gas and Electric in Baltimore, has an in-place program around slow speed maneuvering of large vehicles. So instead of having to create something ourselves, we've simply been able to send our crews to Baltimore to get that training and help improve our safety record. It goes beyond that. There's programs that we're collaborating on around electric vehicles, around solar, around battery storage. So a host of areas where that collaboration helps us move our company forward. On the next slide, just wanted to make a couple comments before I turn it over to Gary and provide some examples about the fact that the merger integration is on track. You'll see that overall across all of our jurisdictions there were 729 commitments. 180 of those commitments were in Delaware. We have closed 82 of those commitments, fully fulfilled them, if you will, or in some cases put in place the program that will ensure that we continue to remain in compliance, because some of those commitments we made are long-term. So we've put in place the programs, the processes, the procedures to make sure we remain in compliance. I will say we've completed every single one of them on time. Every one that we have not completed remains on schedule. We have started to implement a human performance group, which really deals with how I'll say humans are fallible by nature, and how do you put in place the right processes, the right way of looking at things that occur to make sure they don't happen again. We focus first on our substation group, where we do some very, very complex work with the relays that control the system in there to make sure that we're eliminating areas where there could be human performance issues. Very, very proud of the work that we're doing around workforce development and job commitments. We have committed in Delaware to over 80 new positions, and we've filled over 36 of those already. We've provided over $2 million for workforce development to Delaware State, Del Tech, United Way Boys and Girls Clubs, and those programs are proceeding as planned. Local and diverse suppliers are also very, very important to us, I think very important to the community. We're making progress there as well. In 2016, we spent over $49 million with diverse suppliers at Delmarva, which represented about 18.5% of our spend. That is something that performance we're not satisfied with. We've set a goal for ourselves for Delmarva Power to increase that in 2017 to 20%, and we plan to continue to drive that number up again. Again, it's a commitment to the local diverse community. I think by way of perspective, just a few years ago, we would have been at less than $10 million of spend. And again, we're leveraging off some of the programs that Exelon has that allowed us in 2016 to achieve the performance that we did. Our reliability, which is our basic mandate to keep the lights on, continue to see improvements there as well. The frequency of outage measures we use, SAFE, that's some measure that some of you may be familiar with. We decreased the number of outages that our average customer has been seeing from 1.24 in 2015 to 0.99 in 2016. When you look at the duration of those outages for the average customer, they've dropped from 117 minutes to 101 minutes. And again, we've made very specific plans in place to continue to drive those numbers down within the budget constraints or within the budget caps for reliability improvements that we've made as well. Summer and winter readiness, very specific programs to make sure that all the projects we need to have completed before the summer comes are in fact completed, and we are as ready as we can be for the summer storm season. And as Dennis had commented, just from a personal anecdote, having been here for a number of years, it was very, very comforting in Stella not to be going out to a mutual assistance pool and thinking, how many resources are we going to be able to get? And they're coming up from Georgia or some other place, and how long will they take to be here? And then in Stella, sitting here knowing that there's 700 people sitting right outside our service territory if we need them. And as the storm progressed, we were able to increase that number even beyond that. And I think we estimate with that assistance, we were able to cut 2 days off the final restoration time for the storm. So again, a very, very real and tangible benefit of being part of a larger local company. And then finally, there's $72 million of direct benefits to customers. Some of that came in the form of bill credits. Some of it is in energy efficiency programs for low income. Some of that is in economic development funding, and some of it is also going through DNREC for additional energy efficiency programs, among others. So with that, let me turn it over to, I did want to comment on one other thing, I'm sorry. This is a slide that I've used with our employees for the last 2 years to make sure that as a company, we're focused, all of us are focused on a single small set of goals to allow us to move the business and our performance forward. If you start in the upper left, safety is number one. I've talked about that, not just for our employees, but also for the public. There is no job that I think as leaders of this company we have that's more important than ensuring our employees and the public safety. Right under that is reliability and operational excellence. To me, operational excellence, reliability, keeping the lights on, is very, very important. But the service we provide our customers and the manner in which we provide it every single day is also critically important. And also to work on continuing, I'll say, to be excellent operators, to make very efficient use of the funds that we have, the funds that we spend, whether it's in capital or O&M, very, very important. Some of that gets driven, a large part of it, through the engagement of our workforce, something that's very important to us and we measure regularly. and then also integration, taking advantage and leveraging off the learnings we can have from Exelon. And at the top, regulatory and financial outcomes. I'll just say, when I think about regulatory outcomes, to me it goes much, much beyond just rate cases. I think there's, for instance, with Mr. Howitt's cooperation and help, we've been looking at things like demand-based rates. Are there different ways that we can approach this to provide good service to our customers, provide options to our customers? We've looked at things like electric vehicles, electric vehicle rates, or the things like that, innovative ways we can bring to our customers what they're looking for. We have seen an increase in solar installations. Today, I think we're at almost 7,000 residential solar installations in the state of Delaware, and that number grows by a couple hundred every month at this point. So again, looking at ways to make sure that we're facilitating that process for our customers. And of course, financial outcomes. At the end of the day, we're running a company that at the end of the day, we need the financial outcomes so we can continue to invest to drive safety, reliability, and operational excellence and engagement of our employees. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, time to focus on the home team performance. So I'm going to start by just giving you an overview of what you'll see in my section. First, there's the fundamental blocking and tackling, safe, reliable, affordable energy. So we're going to go over some measures of that and how are we doing in those kind of blocking and tackling issues. Then talk about a commitment I've made to you a number of times over the years, which is that we understand that we're an important part of the community, and it's not just about the blocking and tackling, but it's about being part of that community and sustaining the community, and I think Dennis talked to that earlier and the importance of that. And then we're going to talk about some exciting things around the progress that we're making, especially in technology and some of the ideas we have going forward in the year, which I think you'll find exciting as well, to try to align us on what the future of technology looks like. Hopefully you got a chance to see a video. I think when I forwarded on the presentation, I forwarded on a link to a video. If you haven't had a chance to see that, it's a great video, talks about workforce development, and it's a little bit of this feeling of why we're part of the community and what we can do to better the community as we move the company forward. So it's just one example of that. The demographics have not changed. So this is the one slide that'll be more of Delmarva Power, both Delaware and Maryland. Most of the other stuff you'll see in my presentation will be focused on Delaware. So when we look at the demographics of the company, whether it's the employee count, or the square mileage, again, very similar to what you've seen in previous years. Customer count continues to increment up, but not a vastly different geography, still represented by the same unions that we've been represented by for years, and still working very integrally with the munis and co-ops throughout the peninsula, because we are a little bit like Swiss cheese as we look across the peninsula, and those working relationships are incredibly important. We always try to start out with customer satisfaction. It's the one driver we always look towards to make sure what we're changing and what we're doing is having an impact on our customers. As you see, from 2012 on, we've continued to ratchet it up in terms of our performance. We usually put two measures in front of you. One is our overall performance, and the other is reliability, given the importance of that specific measure in what we do day in and day out. Both of those are up, and the primary drivers are twofold. One is all around restoration. So there's been a lot of good feedback to us around the communications. We've been trying to ramp up the amount of communications on storms. That's what's coming, when's it coming, what to prepare for, what are we doing while we're doing it, when can you expect to be back on, and how can you plan your life. So a lot of improvements in communication that has come back as good feedback and helped us bump our numbers up. Also, just the improvement in our numbers in terms of the duration and number of outages has also helped. But also another thing outside of the outage area is our energy efficiency. So our customers are happy when we help them save money, which shouldn't be a surprise. But as we use the technology we talk about around the table here all the time, and we use it in ways that customers can understand and better control their energy costs, that's coming back as very positive feedback. And those are some of the primary drivers in these increases in customer satisfaction. As you look at the rates over the course of the years, a little bit of movement up and down, a little bit of different variations between whether it's just distribution only or total bill. But if you look at the overall total bill, both gas and electric since 2012 have both dropped about just under 10% from where they were in 2012 to where they are now. So I think a relatively good story of overall decreases. Again, some things bumping up and some things bumping down, but the net where the customer sees in terms of their total bill, about just under 10% decrease over those years. And so we're happy about that. The next slide is kind of an interesting slide, and I don't know if we've teed this up in this way before. The first thing we did was, there's a lot of discussion in Delaware around total bill, and people make a lot of comments about where our bill is relative to the nation, relative to others. And there's different sources that are quoted. So whether you look at the News Journal, or if you look at the General Assembly, you look at what we put out. So we picked three what we think are the most credible sources out there on providing information about total bill cost. Electricity Local is the one the News Journal tends to rely on in their stories. And then you have EEI and EIA, basically the industry expert and the government expert. And those three sources, what we did was we looked through Delaware, then we looked at the region as defined, and you can see on the slide what it's defined as, and then we looked nationally. And we said, how do they compare both in residential, commercial, and industrial? And I think what you'll find and this is a total Delaware, so this is not just Delmarva Power. This is if you look at the state of Delaware. And I think what you'll find is a consistent story that says we stay competitive regionally, but we struggle with staying competitive nationally. And that's not a surprise given where the supplies of our energy comes from, that it will be a challenge in the Northeast. And so you can see from a regional perspective, we stay fairly competitive there. But we also wanted to show you a picture of something more specific to what this commission spends most of their time talking about and what you work with us on a day in and day out basis. And there's only one of the three sources that provides this information. It's EEI. And what they do is a distribution-only comparison across the country. And so if you look at distribution-only, same layout, same residential, commercial, industrial, same comparison to region and national, you can see that we are very competitive on that portion of the bill, whether it's regionally or nationally, to the point of looking at our industrial rates where we're literally half of the region and half of the national rate from an industrial perspective. So I think from the Commission's perspective, looking at what you do day to day, it's something that could reassure you that what you're focusing on with us on a day-to-day basis is hitting home with us, and the efforts that we're working with your team on to try to control rates and give customers the ability to do that is taking effect. And so we wanted you to have that information because that's a good bit of the dialogue that goes around in Delaware. The next slide so that slide was focused on electric. The next slide is really focused on our procurement process for gas. So we typically show you a regional comparison, and we're about where we typically show you we are, which is middle of the pack. We have not either gravitated to one end or the other over the years, and we try to show a good representation geographically of this up in the Northeast here, some of our neighboring utilities. So from a natural gas supply cost, that gives you a feel for kind of where we sit on that as well. And again, to give you a comfort level that we're not on either extreme, well, I'm sure you'd like to be extreme low, but we're not on the extreme high. The next slide, I think we've had a tremendous amount of discussion mostly about the electric distribution capital spend in the state here, and a lot of good dialogue with your team on this, and even some good commitments coming out of the merger relative to this. But what we put in front of you is really distribution, transmission, and natural gas capital spends. So on the distribution side, you'll see reflected there that we've been ratcheting this down. That's primarily driven by the commitments we made to not only ratchet down our reliability spend, but at the same time take advantage of our new parent company to institute best practices and not see a corresponding reduction in the performance. And I think I'll show you that on the following slide, that we're having success in ratcheting down the spend but not ratcheting down the performance. On the transmission side, I think you may recall back in 2012, 2013, we talked about a lot of the transmission work going on the peninsula, and that how it kind of played out from the blackouts that we had and some of the more stringent criteria on transmission. So you're seeing that start to drop off a little bit. We're kind of entering an environment of aging infrastructure in our transmission side. So I'm not sure how that'll pan out over the years, but you will see as well as on the capital that there's a general decrease in our transmission spend as well, and it's on the lower side that it's been on in the past several years. Which is good news for our customers in that perspective. And then on the natural gas, more consistent there, a little bit of an incremental spend on natural gas, but again, a fairly consistent, steady number on the natural gas side. But it was meant to give you an idea where our capital spend is going in each of those three areas. I mentioned before the key measures that we usually come before you with are our SAIDI, the duration and frequency, SAFE measures. And this is where I commented that And I think you heard earlier a lot of efforts that are being made to bring in Exelon best practices, and even though we're reducing the spend, help us to keep the momentum on the performance. So you'll see that we're sitting right now at 101 in terms of, and this is Delaware, Delmarva Power, 2016 numbers for Sadie. And just to give you a feel, we were, over the past couple years, we were 118, 105, so we were at the higher end of that 101. So good performance relative to our Sadie as we went through 2016. And it put us in the second quartile there, and you can see it's based on IEEE benchmarks. And then on the safety side, same thing, 0.99 there on safety. That compares to 0.98 in 2014, 1.24 in 2015. So just about even with where we were 2 years ago, but much better than we were last year. So again, being able to stay on top of those measures as we go forward. If you turn to the next slide, this is one that's a little bit more focused on our natural gas business. As you know, we are doing quite a bit of work to extend the mains into new developments. We've had quite an effort not only to permeate kind of our along the main programs, but look at what we can do to bring in new developments. So a number of new developments that are just off our main where we work together. You yourselves worked on a kind of a relaxed policy there that allowed a more efficient sell into those new communities, and that has paid off. We have just under 2,000 new natural gas customers that we've brought on. A continued focus on gas main replacement. You can see there at the that main replacement of 7.1 miles is about a little less than where we were about 8 last year, and a little bit higher than we were 2 years ago at just about 5 miles. So a little bit of a ramp up from then. We have 4,300 emergency calls, and then responding to them within 1 hour, 99.6% of the time. So that's one of the key measures in our gas business. When people call with a gas emergency odor response, we want to be out. We want to be responding within the hour, and so we do track that quite a bit. And then we have basically, I think, a new measure which we haven't shown to you traditionally, which is unplanned outages per 1,000 customers. And so these tend to fall into the hit lines. Probably the majority of them either hit lines or poor, no pressure. Sometimes experiencing in the winter months where we have pressure issues, but it's at a 3.16 measurement, and that's down from previous 2 years in terms of our customers impacted. Now, the next slide is where I think we interact a good bit with a number of you. You get an opportunity to sometimes see us in this fashion. But the good news about this merger is, as much as I thought we had a very solid community culture and really investment in the community, what Exelon brings is a level of rigor to that and support to the people that are doing it that is far beyond what we had before. An Energy for the Community program that really enhances all the internal supports to allow our employees to be even more involved. And I'd say beyond allows, encourages our employees to be even more involved. So from a charitable contribution, the commitment that Exelon made to our levels of contribution will actually have us on a higher spend on a year-to-year basis, about $1 million a year. We have about 70 individuals in our company that are permeated through boards in the community and trying to provide thought leadership to those independent nonprofits and help them move along, which is really a big need in the community for them to have leadership out of the business community to help on that. And then just under 5,000 hours, volunteer hours, which will be, and that was in 2016 as we were just getting into the changes that Exelon brought to the table. I think you're going to see that number when I come back to you next year jump a couple thousand in terms of hours because of the robust support. And it's both, it's support in terms of notification of events, it's support in terms of recognition for those people that are doing things, it's actual financial contributions that as you work in the community, Exelon brings money to the places where you work, so you can see not only your dollars going there, but matching dollars going there. So all of that kind of helps boost those numbers. And then below at the bottom are some of our key groups that we're involved in. We're significant players in the Heart Walk in Wilmington every year. And then as you look, we do habitat builds. Red Cross is just right up our alley in terms of we're always out there when we're on emergencies. We see them there. And so a number of them are our volunteers, and we also support their volunteers. Junior Achievements has always been one of those things that we just love to do because it allows us to get into the schools with a message about how business is going to impact their future lives. So we have probably the largest number of teachers in Junior Achievements of all the companies in Delaware. And then Special Olympics is a special one that we've been ramping up because some of our sister companies actually have more of an activity in Special Olympics than we did. So lately we've been ramping up some of the Special Olympics. But that gives you a little bit of a feel for the philanthropy activity. And then I'd like to leave you with kind of what I see is in the year ahead. And this is where I said I think we're getting into some pretty exciting stuff that I'm going to be happy to come back and report to you how we're doing. And we're going to be working very closely with your teams on this. First off, we have a technology symposium in October. I think it's October 13th. Is the current date. You'll get a hold the date coming out soon. The idea behind the technology symposium is a lot of different new players around the table, so to speak, and also if we look at DEMREC and elsewhere, a lot of new players that may not understand all the technology going out there. So what we wanted to do is at our conference center, bring in everything that Exelon can bring to bear across multiple technologies and give you a chance for a little bit of hands-on, a little bit of understanding of how it impacts the customer, with the intent being that we start to align all of our stakeholders around the table with where are we heading with technology? What should we be doing? Where should we be focusing our attention? I know recently, and it's mentioned here, electric vehicles. The chair was talking to us about, how do we not only move electric vehicle infrastructure forward, but now that we're a bigger footprint in the Northeast, how do we move it forward that we're thinking more broadly even in Delaware? We have a lot of the Northeast corridor of Route 95 and all the way down to the shore, and how does that translate into electric vehicles and what we might be able to propose in more of a grand scale? So they're the kind of things we want to bring into this technology symposium with the hopes that when we come out, we'll get feedback from all of you. What did you like? What do you think is important for Delaware? What should we be focusing on? And then we'll put together an agenda to make sure we get there. Coming out of one of our recent pilots, our settlements, we're going to be hopefully moving forward, at least back in front of you, telling you if it makes sense to move forward on a pay-as-you-go metering pilot. And I think the most exciting thing is, for pay-as-you-go metering or prepaid metering, as some of you may have heard of it, most exciting thing about that is the actual energy efficiency savings that technology brings to bear. And it's really kind of a hidden benefit, and we'll be looking forward to tell you more about it. As Dave said, we're really focused laser on these merger commitments and knocking them off one at a time and making sure that at the end of the day we meet every single one of them on the time that we said we're going to meet them. Maintaining reliability, that's kind of the core thing of what we do, and so that's kind of our day-to-day blocking and tackling, as is our customer focus. There's a really interesting initiative across all of Exelon to really think about how to step ourselves up. I mean, if you just compare ourselves to the industry around customer satisfaction, that's one thing. But if you start really looking at who's good at customer satisfaction, even outside of our industry, it really shows you areas where you can make significant improvements. And I see, Exelon really trying to drive that out through their utilities in a way that I think will start to move us beyond just a comparison to our industry, but a comparison to those that are best in class with customer service. And then I think as you started out, artificial island, we heard you, and I think it was artificial island, artificial island, artificial island were the first three things you wanted us to stay focused on. And hopefully since that discussion, you've seen that we are focused on that. We understand where you are on that. We are with you on that same feeling, and we're going to continue to do the things we've done. We've been actively working with our chamber. We've been actively working with the staff of both the commission staff and the advocate staff in terms of understanding the process, the impact of customers, and we'll obviously always be at disposal to the commissioners on any questions or any concerns relative to artificial island. So that's what we see in the year ahead. Hopefully be back down again next year and have a good report card to bring to you. But we do appreciate your time today and want to open up for any questions you may have before we wrap up.
Mr. Slater, any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Of course.
Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This won't take very long. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. I want to circle back to the Stella event, the storm that came. And I want to just reaffirm kudos to you guys for your response, especially the level of safety that I think you maintained throughout that for your employees. I stepped out of my residence and tree limbs were just falling, and there was no way to predict that they were coming. And if I was on a bucket or a ladder, I'm telling you, I mean, I don't know how you guys avoided more safety risk, but it was phenomenal what you've done. And if you keep that up, I think that all of your ratepayers in this region are going to be very, very happy. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, I have one question on page 12 of your presentation where you say DPL employees plus service company. Can you just help me understand what plus service company means?
I'm sorry, say that again?
It says DPL employees up the top right-hand side of page.
Service companies. So those would be the PHI and Exelon level support individuals who would typically do work across multiple utilities. So DPL employees would be focused here in Delaware 100% of the time.
Okay.
Service level employees would be supporting all of the utilities, either in the PHI service arena or at the Exelon level. So we would get part of their attention. But they would reside in Delaware. So that's why they're listed here. They reside here,
okay.
And they probably travel to different areas and support other utilities. Whereas the DPL folks are kind of laser focused on their jobs here almost 100% of the time.
An example might be a substation engineer who designs substations located in Delaware.
Okay.
Design a substation in Delaware. Maybe they work on one in Atlantic City Electric, work on another one in Delaware. So that would be a service company employee.
Okay. One other topic, just to change lanes a little bit. I have asked, because of one of your merger commitments, to get reports on your supplier diversity programs, and I have received those, and thank you very much. And again, kudos for your performance. It's hard for me sometimes to discern whether the results that you're getting from that program are across the footprint of Pepco Holdings or within the state of Delaware, which is the scope of the authority that this commission has. It would be helpful in the future, because I did notice you have a Focus 25 program that's coming down the lane that's Delmarva specific, to get more insight on what some of your performance metrics are looking like with that. And one other aspect in this report is you mentioned a number of the engagements that you have, and I'd only recommend that you consider engaging also with University of Delaware Small Business, because I think that may be resourceful for you in finding folks who have either the foundation for training or entering into your program. On that note, Mr. Chair, I have no other questions.
Just one comment on, I'm fairly sure we're going to be working with Mr. Howitt to get on a director's comment section for a much more deeper dive on supplier diversity. So when we come down, we'll have our individuals that are working that area talking about the reports we've been sending you, but I'll make sure that we cover what you're asking when we come down to do that, and we'll work with Mr. Howitt to get on the schedule.
Great. Keep up the great work in that area. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray.
Yeah.
Commissioner Correa.
I am very impressed with the report you gentlemen presented and also your colleagues prepared. You have definitely tied into the communities, be it the American Heart Association or Boys and Girls Club, or even as local as Opera House. So you cannot be farther than that. I mean, you are part of community and you adopt different organizations to help, through which thousands of people get the help and benefits, and I want to thank you for that. Also want to mention that because of, and even though there are technical measurements and there are customer service measurement and there are community measurements, to me it is the overall picture, balanced work for all of them that has won you this Fortune 100 achievement. That you are admired and you are most admired company because it's a well-balanced thing. You are not only community, you are not only technical. If you were only technical, possibly you would not be here. So it's a combination, and I request you guys to continue that combined approach or a total approach to life and what have you. So I'm very much impressed, and thank you for a good report and thank you for the good services to our customers. One thing I would have liked to add here at the last page here is the little bit of financial synopsis of the company. Total capital, $800 million. Total debt, $400 million. S&P rating, A+, A-. Like those major publicly available financial figures would have given me some more satisfaction that you will be here tomorrow and you will be here next year, as you say, hopefully. No, we want you to be here next year, because if you're not here, who is going to provide electricity to Opera House and to DuPont and what have you? Because as a commissioner, I look at continuity of a company to provide the service to our people, and that continuity comes from financial strength. If you're financially strong, you will continue next year and year after, and maybe another 50 years and maybe another 100 years. So I would have loved to see that, and I hope you take it in the right spirit, that I'm not asking you to make something, but I would have looked at it as a commissioner that, yeah, oh boy, this company's rating, S&P rating is good. Fitch and Moody's rating is AA, or the stock price is like as a little bit increasing steadily, and what have you. That kind of a approach will add to the totality of approach we just talked about. But again, congratulations on a very good report and very good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will never be upset about you saying that we need to be financially strong. No.
Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. I want to commend you on the trend in both the satisfaction with reliability and overall satisfaction. I know every percentage point is hard fought, and the trends are both positive, and that's a great thing for us to see. Secondly, Heather had reached out to us regarding the Exelon Innovation Expo, and it coincides with our macro education, and most of us are moderating panels on that day. So we appreciate it, and we will not be there.
We will make a little bit of a video that you can.
Right.
You can share.
We'll get back to you with that, but we understand.
Give you a sense of the energy and some of the things that people have looked at.
And finally, I will be moderating a panel on wind, offshore and onshore wind power. And something came up in some reviews that we did, and that was one of the deliverables with the merger was a study to evaluate the feasibility of land-based wind generation in Kent and Sussex counties.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if that has a date for deliverable or if it's in process or...
Yeah, I think we just put that out for...
Yes, that's actually out. There's three things. It's three things in that. There's potential expansion of gas into the lower portions of Delaware and the wind study as well. There is an RFP out there. We are selecting the most highly, best people we can to do that study for us. So with that, we don't have anything we can give you.
Do we put a timeline in the bid?
Yeah, we expect responses very soon, but it won't be in time for
my presentation?
I can't tell you. One of the
19 days.
One of the commitments was to conduct 3 separate RFPs for land-based wind RECs contracts. The first one of those was issued. I can't tell you anything confidential yet, but it is going very well. And we will be able to, I think, provide you with something that is very pleasing, so you can at least say that is ongoing. I can tell you there's been a very good response to it. It's an active RFP, and you can at least say that that's going on in NOAA at this time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one last question.
You may not believe this, but Commissioner Gray does have one last question.
As I'm listening here, I'm one of only 3 commissioners at the table who were here on the approval of the merger, and I'm just curious because sometimes when marriages come together, things work well, and sometimes, there's subtle things under the surface that don't screen very well. I'm just curious, would any of you like to comment on how the merger culture is emerging and developing?
Can you imagine being married to Gary?
It hadn't crossed my mind.
I'll leave it up to you guys to make some comments. I'll add anything as appropriate.
This is the third merger I've been through, and I think it's probably been the smoothest merger from a cultural standpoint, because I think the Exelon values line up very, very well with what Pepco's and Holdings and Delmarva's values were around safety, reliability, operational excellence, integrity, diversity, and inclusion. So if your core values are lined up, the rest falls into place. The other thing that's gone more smoothly than I've ever seen before is Exelon is an exceptional operator of utility companies. There's no other way to put it. As I said earlier, I've been in the business 36 years, have served on any number of committees at EEI, AIC, SEE around the industry. Exelon is a top-notch operator. Anytime you form a partnership, my view always is, I want a partnership with somebody who's better than I am. And I think Exelon not only is a better operator than we have been, but also has the systems in place, and having been through other mergers, the processes in place to allow us to leverage that much more quickly than I've seen in the prior mergers we've been through. So I think culturally we line up. That's made it very easy. I think the processes that they have in place, Exelon had in place, has made it very quick for us. And I think you see that in the improvements we're seeing in performance already, and we're going to continue to see.
And Mr. O'Brien, is this an easy partnership for you?
I've been through quite a few of them at this point. I think each time, we've learned about, how to do it better and how to work through all the social other issues. I've now have it to the point of, I think you need to mix the leadership at all levels, integrate the leadership at all levels almost immediately. And so, my chief customer officer that reports to me, that designs how we're going to transform the customer experience, is one of Dave's direct reports. And so that demystifies Exelon a little bit. So she's in on every conversation with me. And then on Dave's team, there's a mix of some Exelon folks and some PHI folks. And I think that integration right up front just helps things. It probably took us 2 or 3 times to realize you got to get that right mix. It is a team. It is a chemistry. And I would, there's a chemistry piece to it. But I can tell you relative to, my relationship with Dave and my relationship with Gary, the chemistry here is the best I've ever experienced in a merger. And I've been through probably 3 successful ones and a couple ones that were not approved. And the chemistry here is really good.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Geddes.
I have a technology question to ask Gary. In the symposium, as you're probably aware, China is one of the leaders in trying to extract hydrogen from water as a source for electricity. And they've got some huge projects going on. Australia's looking at it as well. Is that something that would be covered in that? I mean, are there any programs here that you're aware of where they're looking at hydrogen as possible energy?
Yeah, I may defer to Dennis on this. He's more involved in some of that stuff nationally than I am. But our intent is Heather is going to be down talking to all of you about what you want to see, to get a feel for everything. I mean, we're going to have some ideas coming to the table, but we want to come down here and ask each of you what things like that. What have you heard on that specific technology? I don't know.
We have a small strategy group in Exelon that looks at the state of the art technology, so we understand trends and what's coming and what's real and what's fads. I think we've looked a lot at that. I don't know that we think it's imminent. We've done some things with fuel cells as demonstration projects to get some experience with it. And at this point, I'd say the best we're doing is getting some experience and trying to learn about it. But I don't think we've come to any conclusion as to the viability, what and when.
It's like solar in many ways. I just have a relationship in Australia, and this particular individual is now selling into the grid as a co-generator using this source. And it's the efficiency numbers that are the hardest. I mean, because it's like 4 or 6% efficient. And you obviously have to get that efficiency up before it becomes economic. But it sounds, it is a clean energy source. And, possibilities pretty exciting.
And we've done, for the different technologies, we want to do demonstration projects. We don't know whether they're going to work or not work, but as a utility, we really need to understand them, be at the table. And so our different companies have been able to demonstrate different technologies, which is a good thing where you don't have to demonstrate the technology 6 times over. You can demonstrate the technology in one of the utilities and say, oh, that's a good technology, bad technology, we can use it. And that's a little bit of the value of the scale of the company.
Well, thank you all once again. It was very interesting to hear the story of Exelon and the merger. And I would say that obviously having voted on the merger and voted in favor of it, all of us here had certain apprehensions. But fortunately, I guess Exelon has been through a number of mergers in the past, and this was not its first rodeo. And Obviously, as we congratulated the home team, Connie and Andrea, et cetera, on their work on the merger. Obviously, one of the first things I heard, I guess it's ex parte scuttlebutt, I don't know, but I just heard in passing that the staff and I think also that the public advocates group would say the same thing, was that very impressed with the Exelon people, their professionalism, their hard work, their ideas. So I think that the O'Brien, a little bit of competition method is going to work, and I think I've seen signs of it already. I know that Mr. Stockbridge is a very competitive individual, not necessarily on a golf course, but no, actually he's competitive anywhere. So I think that the competition, that little competition, is going to be very helpful. And then Dave, of course, talked about collaboration and reliability with safety first. And Commissioner Gray mentioned the storm, and we're much appreciative of the efforts from Exelon and the whole family with respect to the storm. I love to hear the word collaboration. I wish our commissions in the state would be able to collaborate more, our staffs be able to collaborate more. You see here a group from Exelon and all the family of Exelon and what that scale gives you and how it can help the future. I just wish we all could think maybe a little big grander scale. Sometimes it's sort of like tilted windmills, perhaps, but I think we should probably just try to keep our minds open and see what we can do to help our customers in the future. So this stuff about, of course, Bob Howlett's got to sort of pull me down out of the clouds. But I like to talk about the electric charging stations and electric vehicles. I mean, that's going to happen. I don't care what's going on nationally. That's going to be driven by economics and what's going on and what people want. So thank you very much. It was very informative and also very positive, and hopefully the word of how good the merger is going will trickle down to all of the customers, and we'll get some good feedback from them. I'm sure Mr. Slater will keep us on our toes and let us know how that works out. So thank you, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Noya still in attendance?
Yeah.
You have something you want to share with us today?
No, but thank you for asking.
Nothing about the Art Reggie or? Okay, that was it. Thank you, Tom. Is there anybody else here from the public that'd like to make any comment to the Public Service Commission? Mr. Howlett.
Chairman Winslow, Commissioners, I thank you for the opportunity to share with you my director's comments, but before I go into that, I'm really glad to see that we've solved the climate change problem now. It would seem to me that if we continue to have carbon dioxide emissions and the polar ice caps melt, that the water will rise. If the water rises at the same time we are able to extract hydrogen from it to repower everything in an efficient process, it seems to me enough hydrogen out of that water would lower the water level, and so we would solve the climate problem. So I really appreciate Mr. Geddes' insights into that.
I couldn't tie that all together, but
It's just a whole circle of everything going on. So I thank you for those insights, Mr. Geddes. The only thing I really have is that we have another commission meeting scheduled for Tuesday, June the 20th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we will be putting our agenda together for that. I do have one other item that I would like to advise the commission on, and I've asked Mr. Hardigan to share with you some things we've been doing at the FERC level.
Thank you, Mr. Howitt. Chair and Commissioners, pinch hitting again for Mr. Farber. But last November, FERC issued Order 831, which was concerning a verification procedure for incremental energy offers over $1,000 per megawatt hour. And FERC ordered the RTOs and ISOs to verify that those offers were legitimate in terms of the market seller's actual price or expected cost. In PJM's compliance filing with that order, they added two additional criteria or adders. One was a 10% adder to capture uncertainty involved in computing the cost of the offer. The other was a 10% adder for fuel price volatility. We feel that those adders are invalid because they're arbitrary. They don't rely on any requirements or circumstances. PJM didn't really justify why they were needed. They may result in higher L&P costs, which obviously impact customers. And they also have the potential of shifting risk from the market sellers to customers. So on May 30th, we filed our protest and comments with FERC and are awaiting their decision. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
The action required from the commission?
No.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Howard.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Winslow.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, I have one comment for Mr. Howard. Bob, I wanted to thank you and the commission staff. I received an inquiry from the city of Wilmington with regard to how to forward phone lines for service to extension 311. And apparently someone on your staff was in a position to provide the necessary support to the city, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. I have a very knowledgeable staff. I'm still trying to figure out what 311 does, but I hope it was resolved satisfactorily.
We are adjourned.
I was reading someplace